Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. Hope all of you had a wonderful Seder last night as we begin this wonderful, hard, difficult, elucidating, meaningful holiday of Pesach. Yes, it is a balance of tension and contradictions. Probably why I like Passover so much. It's always nice to sit down at the Seder finally and take a collective breath. Of course, the work is not all over. Still have to put the food out. We have to clean up afterwards. And anyway, but I hope everyone has had a great Passover so far. Thank you for joining me this morning for Shabbat Pesach service. Hold on one second. We will, let me just get my bearings here. Here we go. Of course, we will be here this morning and tomorrow morning for the second day of Pesach, also at 9:30 a.m. There will not be somebody's reporting no sound. I believe there is sound. So can somebody please let me know? Max is reporting no sound. Can someone else who's logged in tell me if they can hear? I will wait. My indicators on, yep, okay, thank you very much. There is sound. Again, we will not have Havdalah this evening because we will all be sitting down at our second Seder. We will reconvene our Havdalah service next week, next Saturday, April 23rd, I believe. We will note the new time of 8 p.m. Thank you, all of you, telling me that you can hear me. I'm so glad. Thank you so much. And we will reconvene on the 23rd at 8 p.m. Note the time change at 8, not 7:30. It's going to be 8. And we will be there for a while, till probably mid to end summer. And next weekend, make a note, our student cantor, Carl Sayers, will be with us for the last 2 days of Pesach. That's Friday morning at 9:30 a.m., Friday evening for Shabbat Pesach, and on Saturday morning for Shabbat Pesach, the last day of Pesach, which also includes Yizkor. That's next Saturday. And also next Saturday, a representative from the ISJL, the Institute for Southern Jewish Life, that provides a religious school curriculum. We'll also be doing a Torah study on Saturday morning. So we have a lot of things going on. And so I invite you to open your Siddur. We are praying out of Siddur Lev Shalem. And join me, page 103. Rise if you are able, spiritually, emotionally, or physically, however you want to rise. Page 103, and join me for the Birchat HaShachar, the blessings of the morning. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasach vivina levchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani b'tzomo. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani ben chorin. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shasani Yisrael. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Pokeach Ivrim. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ma bisharimim, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Ma tir asirim, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Rokal haaretz halamayim, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Hamechin mitzedei gaver, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Sh'asa li kol tzarki, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Oz Yisrael b'gvura, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Ot Yisrael b'tifara, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Hanotein layoef koach, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Hama'av yeshnem yemhem utnu me'afapoi. Uteneinu hayom v'chol yom chen chesed rachamim v'necha v'necha v'neveting malenu chasadim tovim. Baruch Adonai gomer chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. You may be seated. We will continue page 112 with Psalm 92. I welcome Bert Shepard joining me in the sanctuary in person. I just want to remind everyone that we are open if you would like to join us in person for our Shabbat services. You are welcome. Friday nights at 6, Saturday mornings at 9:30. Also tomorrow morning for Shabbat Pesach service at 9:30 a.m. Page 112. Hayom Yom Shabbat Kodesh, Hebu Hayom Brim B'Vet HaMikdash, Mizmor Shir Le'om HaShabbat. Od yunuvun b'sevedeshenim v'ranim yu lagid kirshanat suri v'lo avlatabo. You are already seated, sorry. Page 120. There we go. Psalm 30. Mizmor Shir Chanukat B'Ile David. הפכת מספדי למחולי, פיתקת סחי ועזרני שמחה, למען ישמח ולא ידום, אדוני אלוהי ללמודך. We rise once again, page 122, either physically or spiritually, for Baruch She'amar. Baruch She'amar v'hayahu lam Baruch Hu. Baruch Hoseh v'Reishit, Baruch Omer v'Yoseh, Baruch Gozer Kayem, Baruch Merachim al haaretz, Baruch Merachim al habriot, Baruch Mishalem Sachar Tov L'Orev, Baruch Chai v'Kayam L'Netzach, Baruch Podomatzio, Baruch Shemaho, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yachid Chalamim Melech Mishbach V'Neshma Gadol Baruch Ata Adonai Melech Mehulal Batishbachot. You may be seated. We continue with Ashrei, page 136. Ashrei Oshrei Veitecha Od Yalucha Sela Shim Shkachalo Ashrem Shadonai Elohav Tehila LeDavid. Tilat Adonai daber pihi v'vorek b'asher shem kodsho le'olam va'ed v'anachnu nevarech yam yatav ilam. Hallelujah. We continue page 141 with Psalm 150. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, b'kadsho, hallelujah, b'kiyauzo, hallelujah, v'gvurotav, hallelujah, karav, gudlo, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, beteka shofar, hallelujah, beneve vechinor, hallelujah, betonfu macho, hallelujah, beminim viugav, hallelujah, 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 betziltz le'shama. Hallelujah, till try trua, kohan shamat halaya. Hallelujah, 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 kohan shamat halaya. Hallelujah. Kol hanshamat hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai le'olam amen v'amen. Baruch Mitzion shechein Yerushalayim, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elohei Yisrael senif levado. Uvaruch Shem kavodo levi melech vet koretz. Amen v'amen. Page 145. Nishmat kochai tivarech et shimecha Adonai Eloheinu. Mid melach mishvelach mi'aroch lach oel hagedol gibor v'hanora el adyon kanei shamayim va'aretz nehela lachon shabechacha hon v'rechen v'rechet shem hakodeshecha kamor leDavid baruch nafshi et Adonai v'chol cheravai et shem kodesho. On a normal Pesach, on a normal Shabbat, the position on the bima always changes when the chazan takes over. At Shochin Ad on page 147, right in the middle of the page at that box. But when it is one of the Shalosh Regalim, Sukkot, Shavuot, or Pesach, the chazan takes over a paragraph earlier at Ha'el. Because it's God-centered, and on the high holidays, by the way, we switch over at the end of that paragraph at Hamelech, because that is the season of judgment on the king. So we continue page 147. Oh, betazmotu zecha agadol bechavod shemecha Hagibor v'netzach v'nora b'norotecha Hamelech hayoshev al kisei ram v'nisa Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo V'chatuv ranenu tzadikim b'Adonai Laisharim navatila Befihi sharim titalau Uvdivrei tzadikim titbarach Uvyoshon chasidim titromam Uvekerev kedoshim Titkadash Magalot Revavot Machobet Yisrael Laudahod Lehalehu Lishabeach Leverleramim La Deliverek Lelukaleis Al Kol Divrei Shirot Vatishbachod David ben Yishayav Decha Meshichecha Yishtabach Shimacha La'ad Malkeinu Berachod v'hodod mi'atavi ha'olam Baruch atah Adonai El melech gadol batishbachot El odot Adonai niflaot Habocher b'shirei zimara Melech El Chei ha'olamim. We now take a collective breath as we transition our service to Shacharit proper, page 149. Ask everyone to please rise for the call to worship the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai Amevorach. Baruch Adonai Amevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech olam Yotzer v'rech oshech oseh shalom Uvarei et hakol. You may be seated, page 150. Hakol yoducha Yakol yishabechucha. Ein kirchach Adonai Eloheinu b'olam hazeh v'yein zulot machil l'chayei olam haba. Efes b'yotach ha'goli l'mot ha'mashiach v'yein do melech Moshienu l'tchiyat ha'metim. Page 151. El Adon hakol ha'masim baruch umvarach b'fi kol neshama gadlo v'tuvo malei olam dat udvuna sova v'imoto hamid koel chayot hakodesh v'nheder b'chavod al merkava zechutu mishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei chavodo Atovim meyorot shebaru Eloheinu yetzarim bedat bevina uvaskel koach ugvura natan bahem liod moshlim bekerev tehivel meleim zivam afikim noga nae zivam mechalolam semechim betzeitam v'sasim bavawam osim b'yem aretzon konam Pierre v'chavo notnim lishmo tzala v'rina lezecha malchuto kara l'shemesh v'yizrachocha v'hi ki hintu atavana shevak notnim lo kol tzava hamaran תפארת וגדולה, שרפים ויופנים וחיות הקודש, אלי, 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 page 152. לא אלא ששבת מכל המשים ביום, מה שהתעלה וישב על כיסא כבודו. תפרח מושיענו שבח מעשה ידיך ויאמריך עשיתי יפרוך סלה, page 153. תפרח שורנו מלכנו וגאולנו ברי קדושים. וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה וטהרה בשיעור זמרה, מברכים משבחים ומריצים ומקדישים וממליכים. Excuse me. את שם האל המלך הגדול והגיבור והקדוש הוא. וכולם קבלים עליהם ומלכות שמיים זה מזה ונודרים מרשות זה לזה, להקדיש לעצם בנחת רוח בשפה ורבנים הקדושה, כולם כחרונים ויאמרים בהירה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך על הארץ כבודו. ויופנים וחיות הקודש פרש כנום מנצל מצרפים לעומתם משבחים ויאמרים ברוך אדוני ממקומו. I think one of those matzo balls didn't go down right. La'el baruch nimot yiteinu. But man, they were tasty. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir v'nizkech ulanu meher aleiro. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir v'nizkech ulanu meher aleiro. Baruch ata Adonai yotzer hamiot. Page 154. Avrav v'tanu Adonai Elohim. V'avienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komemiut li'artzenu ki el po'e yeshuatata Uvanu v'charta mikoam v'lashon v'keravtanu l'shimcha gado seila beyemet lahodot lecha ol yachedcha b'yahava baruch et Adonai avocher b'yamo Yisrael b'yava Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ho'ele Asher Anochi Mitzavecha Hayom al Levavecha V'shinanatam Levanecha V'dibarta bam B'shivtecha B'veitecha Uvlechtecha V'derech Uv'shachpecha V'kumecha Ukshartam Yot al Yadecha V'hayu Latotafot B'ninecha וכתבתם נם זוזות ביתך ובשעריך, ויעים שמוע תשמעו אל מצותי. Vayomer Adonai Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem yasu lehem tzitzit al kanfei avigdehem ledoratam v'natnu al tzitzit hakana petil techelet v'haya lachem letzitzit Oritem hotos, chatem et kol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem hotam, v'lo tatu racharei levavachem v'yacharei nechem, asher tem zonim achareihem, leman dizgaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kadoshim le'elohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem. Asher otzeiti etachem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet. Ledovedo kayam ushmo kayam v'chisan nachon malchuto v'imenoto le'ad kayamet. We're on page 157, fourth line from the top of the page. Udvar Chaim Kaim. Emet shata Adonai Eloheinu v'levatenu malkeinu melech v'otenu goelenu goel avotenu Yotzreinu tzur yushatenu podenu matzilenu me'elam shemecha Ein Elohim zulatecha Ezrat avotenu atahu me'olam. Page 158. Ram v'nisa gadol v'nora mashpil geim umagbi hashfalim motzi asirim forenavim v'yozedalim v'yon eliamo b'yet shavam elav tilod la'elad yon bracham vrach Moshe v'nei Yisrael chaneshira b'simcha rabbah V'yameru lama mi chamocha boilim Adonai mi kamocha nedor bakodesh nara tehilot o seifele shira chadasha shibechu geulim Shimcha Asfatayam Yachad Kulam Hodu Vehim Lecho V'yameru Adonai Yimloch Leolam Voed Tzur Yisrael Kuma B'Ezrat Yisrael V'teichinu Mecha Yehuda V'Yisrael Go Aleinu Adonai Tzavot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'o Yisrael. We continue with the Yom Tov Shacharit Amidah, pages 306 to 314. We will chant the first three brachot together, beginning on page 306, and then you may continue and recite the final four through page 314. Again, we begin on page 306. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Dovim v'Konei Hakol V'zocher chastei avot, u'mevii goel lifnei v'neihem l'man shemo b'yahava, melech ozer v'foked u'mashiach u'magen. Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham, u'foked Sarah, atah gibor li'olam Adonai, mechayem etim atorav l'hoshia, mashiva ruach morid agashem, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechaye metim berachamim rabim, samech noflim v'rofei cholim, umatir asirim, umakayim, emunato lishenei afar, michamocham bal gevurot, umido melach, Melech memit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'amanata lachayot metim Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hametim Nikadesh et shimacha ba'olam כשם שמקדישים אותו משמי מרום כך כתוב ויד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavot, Malach ha'aretz kevodo. Ahaz b'kol rash gadol, adir v'chazak mashmihim kol, mitnasim l'matzrafim, limatam baruch yomerum, baruch v'adonai mimkomo. ממקומך מכינו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון? בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. ויהננו תירנה, תירנה מלכותך כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך על ידי דוד משיח צדקך ימלוך אדוני לעולם מלך ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושך דנקדיש ושיבחך למפינה לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי המלך קדוש וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני הוי לקדוש. מודים אנחנו לך. Ose shalom imramav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'mahu, amen. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Good. This is Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. It's another chance for us to take a collective breath and just to drink in the holiday, delicious holiday of Pesach, a holiday just dripping with contradiction. It's a difficult holiday to prepare for, but it's a wonderful holiday to experience. And we experienced great company with family, in person, online, heavenly food cooked by Irene that I'm working its way through my system, but the food was absolutely phenomenal, which is saying something because Passover food is hard to make tasty, but Irene outdoes herself every year, and it was just absolutely wonderful. Today is the first day of Pesach, and as we do on each of the Shalosh Regalim, we recite psalms of praise called Hallel. Now, Hallel is always put into this part of the service right after the Shacharit Amidah on Pesach, Shavuot, or Sukkot. At the Seder, you'll notice we also do Hallel, but we do it sitting down, and we actually split the 5 psalms, 2 before the dinner and 3 after. But it's a slight change. It's very significant that when we recite Hallel at the Seder, we say it as a free person. We say it sitting or reclining. The first 2 psalms have to do with the Egyptian slavery. So we recite those 2 before the Seder, before we eat, and then the final 3 have to do with freedom, and so we recite them afterwards. Anyway, page 316. Ask everyone to please rise if you are able for Hallel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu likro et halel. Hallelujah, hallelujah, avdei Adonai. Mikimi me'afar dal me'ashpod yari me'vion laho shivi im nedivei amo shivi akeret habayit im abinim samecha hallelujah betzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim beit Yaakov me'yam loyez Hayata Yehuda lekadsho Yisrael mamshlotav hayam ravaya nos hayarden yisov leachor he'arim rakedu elim giva'ot kivnei tzon mahalecha hayam kitanu hayarden tisov leachor he'arim tirkedu elim giva'ot Kivnei tzon milifnei adan chuliaretz milifnei lo Yaakov ha'chviat surgamayim chalamish lamayim no mayim. Page 317. Lo lanu Adonai lo lanu ki lishim tein kavod al chastecha ha'amitecha. Yisrael, Yisrael, betach b'Adonai, Ezram, Ezram, umaginam, Ezram, umaginam, hu, Beit Aharon, b'tchuva Adonai, Ezram, Ezram, umaginam, Ezram, umaginam, hu, Yirei Adonai, b'tchuva Adonai, Ezram, umaginam hu. Adonai zechar yivarech, yivarech et Beit Yisrael, yivarech et Beit Aharon, yivarech Yirei Adonai, Haketanim nimna gedolim, Yosef Adonai alechem, alechem v'al b'nechem, beruchim atem l'Adonai, oseh shamayim va'aretz, hashamayim, shamayim l'Adonai, v'ha'aretz natan l'bnei Adam, lo ametim yahallelujah, ולא כל יורדי דומה, ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ויד עולם, מעתה ויד עולם, hallelujah. Page 318. אהבתי כי ישמע אדוני את קולי תחנוני. האמנתי כי אדבר, אני עניתי מאוד, אני אמרתי וחפזי, כה אדם כוזב. I apologize, I missed a psalm. I've never done that in Hallel. We're going to go back, we're going to do one of out of order, page 317 at the bottom. Adonai zechar yivarech, yivarech et Beit Yisrael, yivarech et Beit Aharon, yivarech Yirei Adonai, haketanim imagedolim, Yosef Adonai alechem, alechem v'al b'nechem, beruchim atem l'Adonai, oseh shamayim va'aretz, hashamayim, shamayim l'Adonai, ve'haaretz natan l'bnei Adam, lo ametim yahallelujah, ve'lo kol yordei duma, v'anachnu nevarech ya, me'ata v'yad olam, me'ata v'yad olam, hallelujah. Now we continue regularly, 318 at the bottom. Mashiv Glumalaya, Kosh Yeshua Dasav, Shem Adonai Ekra. Nidarai Ladonai, Shalem Negdana, Lechol, Amo, Bechatrot, Beit Adonai, Betoch Yerushalayim, hallelujah. Just 1 second. Hallelu et Adonai kol goyim shabchu shabchu kol ha'umim ki gavar aleinu chasto v'emet Adonai le'olam hallelujah hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki le'olam chasto Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto. Yomar na Yisrael, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto. Yomru navet Aharon, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto. Yomru na yirei Adonai, ki le'olam chasto. Mihid na metzar kaharatiya, anani v'hamerchavya. Mihi nametzar kaharatiya, anani v'amerchavya, anani v'amerchavya, anani v'amerchavya. Page 320. Orecha ki anitani vati li lishua. Orecha ki anitani vati li lishua. Even masu abonim hayata lerosh pina. Even masu abonim hayata lerosh pina. Me'et Adonai hayata zot. He niflat b'yeinenu me'et Adonai hayata zot. He niflat b'yeinenu zeh hayom asa Adonai nagila v'nismechavo zeh hayom asa Adonai nagila v'nismechavo Anaroshiana Anaroshiana Anaratzlichana Anaratzlichana Baruch haba b'shem Elohim. Ki l'chatov lo dol shimchan elazameki milhamata v'yadolam Baruch eto Adonai melech mehulal batishbachot. I'm going to take a 2-minute break. Please go get something to hydrate yourselves. Excuse me. Sorry for the delay. We are going to go right into our virtual Torah service, which will begin on page 322. You don't need to rise until the ark is opened. We change the cam view, and I'll meet you on the other side. Ein kamocha va'elohim Adonai v'ein k'maasecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'mevshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimloch le'olam voed Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom, av harachamim, heitiv avirtzoncha et Zion, tivnech od Yerushalayim, Tivnech omod Yerushalayim, Ki v'chalvad batachnu, Melech Eram v'nisa, Adon Olamim. Please rise as the Torah, as the ark is open. Vayehi ben Aharon, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, V'yafutzu oyevecha, v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, u'davar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael, b'kedusha. To page 324, Baruch Shemei Damari Alma. Bebeyan arachetz velishmei kadisha kadisha yakira ana emar tushpechan beyan arachetz velishmei kadisha kadisha yakira Ana hemar tushpechan Yehira vakadamach Tetiftach libi biorayeta V'tashlim meshalim delibi V'liba dechol amach Yisrael Letavul chayim V'lishlam Amen. Page 325. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu Ladonai iti, Naramima Shemo Yachtav, Lecha Adonai Hagedula, V'Hagevura V'Hatiferet, V'Hanetzach V'Hahod, Kicho Bashamayim Uvaretz, Kicho Bashamayim Uvaretz, Lecho Adonai Amamlacha, V'yamid Naseh Lecho L'Rosh Romemu, Romemu. Adonai Eloheinu V'Hishtachavu, V'Hishtachavu L'Adam Raglav Kadoshu, Romemu, Romemu. Adonai Eloheinu V'Hishtachavu, V'Hishtachavu L'Har Kadsho, L'Har Kadsho. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. You may be seated. Okay. Let me get my bearings here so we're ready when we need to continue. There it is. Okay. So for the daily readings, weekday readings, we've been reading Acharemot. The daily readings always precede the next regular Torah reading, which in this case we don't do today because it is the first day of Pesach. Therefore, we have a different Torah reading from a different part of the Torah. And next week, also being the last day of Pesach, day 8, we also have a different Torah reading. So Acharemot will actually be read 2 weeks from today. Our reading this morning comes from Exodus chapter 12, verse 21. If you recall from last week when we read from when it was Shabbat HaChodesh, Shabbat HaGadol, I apologize, Shabbat HaChodesh was 2 weeks ago, and we read from Exodus chapter 12, verse 1. This is immediately following the Exodus. The Israelites are given the command to create a sacred calendar. It's the very first mitzvah they are given. So now we are 2 weeks hence, and we are now reading Exodus 12, verse 21. So I will chant the Aliyah, which is found in your Etz Ahayem Chumash, by the way, on page 385, if you have such a book. Exodus 12:21. Vayikra Moshe lechol ziknei Yisrael vayomer alehem mishchu ukechu lachem tzon lemishpachotechem v'shachatu hapasach ulkachtem agudat ezov utvaltem badam asher baksaf v'higadtem et el hamashkof v'yoshtem mezuzot min adam asher basaf v'yatem lo teitzau ish mipetach beito ad boker v'yavar Adonai lingof et Mitzrayim v'ra et adam amashkof v'yal shtei mezuzot ופסח אדוני על הפתח ולא ייתן המשחית לבוא אל בתיכם לנגוף ושמרתם את הדבר הזה לחוק לך ולבניך עד עולם. And the translation of Exodus 12:21 through 24. Moses then summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go pick out lambs for your families and slaughter the Passover offering. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and supply some of the blood that is in the basin to the lintel and to the doorposts. None of you shall go outside the door of his house until morning. For when the Lord goes through to smite the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the lintel and the two doorposts, and the Lord will pass over the door and not let the destroyer enter and smite your home. You shall observe this as an institution for all time, for you and for your descendants." There's a couple things to note about this text. Moses tells the elders, go pick out lambs for your families. And we're not talking about, we're talking about just enough lamb that you and your family will eat it after it is sacrificed. And you must eat it all by the beginning of dawn the next day. It has to be all gone. So, depending on the size of your house, that's how much lamb that you get. So I was asked several times over the past week, people thought that Jews ate lamb for Pesach. And honestly, I think I've had lamb one time in my life, and it was a kosher restaurant in Boca Raton. I had what was called rack of lamb. I had no idea. It was an interesting taste. I guess I could see why people would like it. But on Pesach, we specifically do not eat lamb because the lamb was sacrificed. And since the temple does not exist anymore, because we used to, as a memorial, when the temple was built, that we offered this paschal lamb in remembrance of the Exodus. Of course, the temple didn't exist while the Israelites were in slavery. Okay, but since the temple was destroyed, we don't offer sacrifices of any sort. So therefore, we can't offer the paschal lamb as was done back then. We do have a representative of the paschal lamb, however, on our Seder plate, and that is the shank bone, which is roasted. And we usually it doesn't have much or very little meat on it. It's not something you would want to taste. But it is a symbolic reference of what we used to eat. So Moses says to them, "Go pick out lambs for your homes, slaughter the Passover offering, take a bunch of hyssop." Hyssop is a bush-like plant, apparently, that apparently it'll drink up the blood so that you can paint it on something like a paintbrush. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and then it says, "Vihigatem el hamashkov," and apply some of the blood ve'el shtei hamezuzot to the lintel of the two doorposts. Okay. Min hadam asher, okay, from a doorpost, from this blood of this lamb. So the thing to note, you whenever you listen, sometimes you hear words that sound familiar, and hopefully the word mezuzot sounded familiar. It's mezuzah, plural, and of course we all know what a mezuzah is. It's that little box on our doorposts of our houses. On the right side as you go in, on the top third, and the little box is facing towards the end, and the box is not the mezuzah. It's what's inside the mezuzah that makes it a mezuzah. There's a scroll inside that mezuzah, and on it I should make this a Trivial Pursuits question. What is written on that scroll? It is the Shema, but it isn't the entire Shema. It's only the first two paragraphs, because each of the first two paragraphs mentions that we should write these words upon the mezuzot, upon the lintels of our homes. Okay? And so, but they didn't have mezuzot back then. Okay? Well, they did. A mezuzah is a lintel. They didn't write the words upon the mezuzot, but what they did for the last plague is they dipped the hyssop into the blood of the lamb, and they would paint it not in one place, but on both sides of the doorpost. Okay? And then it says, because then the Lord will pass over the door and not let the destroyer enter and smite your home. There's a whole other thing about who's seeing what. If you look back in chapter 12, what we read last week, verse 13, it says something interesting. It says, "V'haya adam lachem la'ot al habatim asher atem sham, v'rayiti et adam ufsachti alechem v'lo yihye v'chem." Okay. And the blood on the houses where you are staying, it says, shall be an oat, shall be a sign. For you, when I see the blood, I will pass over you, so that no plague will destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Okay, it's the first part. V'haya hadam lachem la'ot. It says, and the blood shall be a sign for you. That means the person who put the blood on the door. Okay? We always associate the blood on the door with God seeing it, and telling the angel, the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, to bypass or pass over this house. But this verse clearly says, the blood shall be a sign for you. You who put the blood on the door. Okay? Now, I find that interesting on so many different levels, because we're always taught that it's not for us to see, it's for the angel of death to see and bypass the house. And think of where the blood is. It's on the mezuzot. What is the purpose of a mezuzah on our house? I'm talking about now the little box with the scroll in. What is the purpose of it? And where is it located? Okay? Do we put it on the door so people walking by can know that this is a Jewish home? Some people believe that. Okay? If that was the case, then the mezuzah would be in such a place on the door that everyone going by your house could see, but that's not where the mezuzah is it? It's actually on the side of the door, not in a place that people would normally see unless they came up to your house, maybe as a guest, maybe a mailman, maybe somebody delivering a package, but not somebody who was casually walking by your house, okay? So what is that mezuzah for? It's not for people to see. It's for you to see. It's for you to see whenever you go out of your house, especially when you come into your house, okay? And it's on the right side in the upper third, because it would be eye level, unless you're Irene, and she would have to look way up because she's very short. Sorry, couldn't pass that one up. It's eye level, and you would see it every time you come in the house, okay? And you reach out and touch it, and some people have the custom of touching it with their fingers, kissing your fingers. I've seen people kiss the mezuzah itself. It's an odd custom, but I've seen that done. And what is it for? It's to remind us of what's in that scroll and what it says in that scroll. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha. And you shall love the Lord your God. I shall love the Lord your God with all my heart, with all my soul, and with all my might. Okay? Every time I go into my house, I am reminded of my obligations. Not for others, it's for me. Okay? Just like the blood on the lintel is a sign for me, okay, that I am observing God's law. Therefore, God will have compassion on me when the angel of death comes to destroy the firstborn. So if an Egyptian happens to be in your house when the Malach HaMavet comes by, the blood on the doorpost does not save him. Okay, only your observance of the law, your having faith in God is what protects you. Okay, and the blood is that symbol. Okay, Rashi actually has a comment which made me think about this past week. I was studying with Rabbi Steve Soren, and we noticed the comment that this blood shall be for you as a sign. Rashi says the blood was on the inside of the door, not on the outside. Okay, if it was on the outside, then everybody could see. This is a Jewish home. No death is going to occur in here, right? Or the angel of death. Well, actually, the blood's on the inside of the door for you to see, no one else. Okay? It's your observance of your Judaism, of Jewish ethics. That's what saved you during the 10th plague. Okay? Let's see. Do I want to do... Hold on one second. Let me just look one further. Do one more. Exodus chapter 12, verse 25. Ki tavo el haaretz asher yitein Adonai lachem kasher diber ushmartem et avodah hazot v'haya ki yomeru elechem b'nechem ha'avodah hazot lachem v'amartem zevach pesach hu l'Adonai asher pasach al batei v'nei Yisrael b'Mitzrayim nogfo et Mitzrayim v'et bateinu hitzio v'yikodam v'yishtachavuhu v'yelechu v'yasu b'nei Yisrael kasher tzivah Adonai et Moshe v'Aaron kein asum. To Exodus 12:25 through 28. And when you enter the land that the Lord will give you, as he has promised, you shall observe this rite. And it says, when your children ask you, what do you mean by this rite? You shall say, it is the Passover sacrifice of the Lord, because he passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians, but saved our houses. The people then bowed low in homage, and the Israelites went and did so, just as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron as they did. If this sounds familiar, it should sound familiar. Okay? It says, when your children in time to come say, Ma avodah hazot lachem. This is what the wise child asks. What what do you mean by this rite? Literally, this is so interesting. Mahaz Agudath. What does this service mean, lachem, to you? Okay? I apologize. This is what the evil son said. To you, to exclude himself. The wise child actually uses the word etchem, which is inclusive. It's a first person plural that includes himself. This is a second person plural to exclude the person asking the question. Okay? Now the answer given to the evil child, we call him evil child, at least he's at the Seder, is different in our Haggadah. In fact, the text is all mishmashed in our Haggadah. My son, Joel, from Greenbelt, Maryland, asked me, kind of surprised me by asking me a question that I couldn't readily answer. And I had to do some research on it. I will talk about this another time. It's interesting that both Talmuds, the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud, actually base their translations, okay, on an ancient Greek translation from a book called the Septuagint. The first time that the Bible was translated into another language was Greek, into a book we call the Septuagint, and apparently they changed some of the words in the Greek that's more indicative of how they interpreted and how we would interpret, to us, to them. And when it gets to the Haggadah, the rabbis actually reverted back to the way it's described, the text of the Torah, but they used their explanations from the Talmud. And hence, why the text is very, very confusing. And I have to agree, it is definitely confusing. But I hope to call Joel at some point this week and kind of go over what I really did find. And I should never be surprised that someone will ask me a question that on the surface seems simple, but in the end is very, very involved and not so obvious. Okay? I will now do a Mishaberach for those in and out of our community in need of a blessing of spiritual, emotional, physical healing. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak Yaakov Sok v'Rachav Alehu Yivarech v'Rapeh Et. Helen Byrne, Rhonda Bliss, Baruch Ben Elisheva, Arnold Fash, Sheila Gidry, Chana Batzara, Linda Smith, Marjorie Allen, Charles Miller, Sherry Russ, Ish Bat Rivka, Becca Martinez, Isaac Ben Joseph, Marsha Orange, Harab Malki Tzedek Ben Barucha, David Kelman, Yao Nami Rivka, Natan Yaakov, Bat Nami Rivka, Stephen Schaefer, Mike Watts, Kelly Mossberg, Deborah Winkler, David Herman, Jerry Weisenfeld, Kibuli, Jeannie Meisler, Miriam Badina, Tara Martinez Fernandez, Liz Wolko, Deanna Barber, Miriam Bat Rivka, Taraz Bat Ruth, Mark Platning, Marlone Germain, Barnes, Virginia Madden, Raymond Lobato Jr., Natalie Copeland, Christopher Hill, Lorenzo Rivera, Tana Boulard, Rivera, Gittel, Tamar Bat Miriam, Sarah Shoshana Bat Nami Rivka, Joseph Dumas, Marcia Hudson, Jackman, Dave Markowitz, Scott Decker, Balabas Rivka, William Williams, Marilyn Vadomsky, Jim Mittenswy, Lucy and Tilly Colwell, Danny Bierman, Sheila Decker, Eugene Labato, Rezal Bataraz, Roland Young, Marilyn Owens, Matt Zobel, Shannon Howard, Tim Whitmer, Nami Rivka Bat Miriam, Benio Nizaz, Jeff Colwell, Margaret Colwell, Reese Smith, Roberto Rivera, Bert. Okay, and we also add to those, all of those suffering greatly in the country of Ukraine. V'et kol achim b'kila kedusha Agudath Etz Ahayem v'kilen tabo beth ora kadosh b'chim alei rachamim aleim la'azikam rabatam v'shlach leim refushlim menashmat nefesh v'daguf b'toch shachalei shabbatil yom tov hu lizok korev lavash t'bagalav azman kariv v'nomar amen. I wish all of those suffering a refuah shlema, a quick and complete healing. We rise to return the virtual Sefer Torah, page 340. Yahallelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodu al eretz v'shamayim, vayaren keren le'amo, tihila lecho chasidav, livnei Yisrael am krovo. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid, Havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Havu l'Adonai kavod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai alamayim, El kavod yirim, Adonai Amayim, Amayim Rabim, Kol Adonai Ba'koach, Kol Adonai Behadar, Kol Adonai Shaver Razim, Vashaber Adonai Etalzei Halvanon, Vayarkidem Kemo Egel Levanon, Visiryon Kemo, Ven reimim, Kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholeu ayalav, vayechasab niarod, uvechalo kulo amer kavod, kulo omer kavod. Adonai lamabul yashav, vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yitem, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom, et amo v'shalom. Page 342. Uvnocho yomah. Ki lekach tov natati lachem, Torati al tazovu, Etz Ahayem lamachazikim ba, vetomcheha meoshar deracheha, Darchei Noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, Kadesh Ameinu kikedem. You may be seated. Let's see. There we go. Lose my place. Shabbat Shalom. Now I can move the cam back before somebody tells me it's in the wrong place. Again, I hope everyone has had or is having a good Passover. I hope your Seders were good. Ours was pitch perfect. Minus the Manischewitz wine, which is just a necessary evil to endure at Seder's. I don't like it, but I do it because it reminds me of my childhood and drinking that sugary, sweet, horrible wine. And I'm sorry if some people really do like it, but it's the only time of year I drink it. And it sticks with you. for a couple days at least. But I was so glad that I was able to kind of temper that taste with excellent food that Irene literally slaved for a week over. And I say slave because, this is the holiday of freedom. It doesn't seem like we're free, right? But I tell you and I tell everybody this, when we sit down at the Seder table and I see that sigh of relief, the work is pretty much done, and we are now free of that slavery. And we can just taste the benefits of all that preparation for Pesach. And we look forward to the second Seder tonight. Just a note, there will be no Havdalah this evening with the Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah, since we will all be at our second Seders. We will resume next week, the 23rd, and it will be at 8 p.m. Note the time change. It was at 7:30, now it's going to be at 8 p.m., and we'll probably stay there through midsummer. And next week, just also note, our student cantor, Carl Sayers, will be here with us for both the 7th and 8th day of Passover. The 7th day is Friday morning. He will be here with me at 9:30 a.m. And of course on Saturday, the 8th day of Passover, also at 9:30 a.m. And we will have Yizkor next Saturday. We will also be joined by a representative from the ISJL, the Institute for Southern Jewish Life, who will do a Torah teaching during our Torah service next week. Okay. Did I think that was all I was going to do there? Okay. All right. Let me switch gears here a little bit. I've lost my table to put things on. Why we tell the story of Passover. As we quoted from this week's reading, "And you shall tell your child on that day, saying, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I went forth from Egypt, and it shall be a sign upon you, and upon your hand, and for a memorial between your eyes, and that the law of God may be in your mouth. For with a mighty hand did God bring you out of Egypt." The commandment to tell the story to the next generation comes at a very strange moment in the midst of the Exodus. The Israelites leave Egypt in a terrible rush, but have not yet crossed the Sea of Reeds, also known as the Red Sea. Before God fully liberates the people from their Egyptian masters, they receive a series of commandments to commemorate the Passover, including telling the story to the next generation. How can God command the Israelites to tell a story whose ending they don't yet know? With the miracle at the sea before them, they have yet to witness the feats of God's power firsthand. But it was not God who commands telling the story, it was Moses. In fact, God only tells Moses to sanctify for me every firstborn, whatever opens the womb upon the children of Israel, both of man and of beast, it is mine. Moses is the one who adds an entire preamble commanding the people to remember, recount, and memorialize this day. It is only then that he gives them the commandment that God told to him, the commandment of sanctifying the firstborn. Why would Moses add laws God didn't even mention? Moses here illustrates supreme leadership. He knows that his people, in the midst of their terror, are not ready to listen to God's command. They first need reassurance that all the danger and terror will someday be but a memory. They need the promise of the land and their survival reiterated. What better way to command the telling of the story than by guaranteeing that they will come out of this alive to tell the story of their miraculous experiences. They will transform present experiences into the festival they celebrate, commemorating those very fragile and unsure moments. Why do we still tell the story? If the function of telling the story in biblical times was to guarantee survival, to spur hope and courage, what is it now? The Haggadah tells us explicitly that we are to re-experience leaving Egypt, to reenact it through a Seder. Egypt, therefore, is not a place that we leave once. It is a place we perpetually leave. Egypt represents not only political and physical bondage, but psychological and spiritual imprisonment as well. In fact, in Hebrew, the word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, means the narrow place. To tell the story before we have completely freed is to believe in a liberation, that internal narrowness, a liberation that has not fully happened yet, but is always happening. To tell the story is to believe in the coming liberation. Tell the story and follow it to the promised land. Shabbat Shalom. All right, let me retrieve my Siddur. We now continue with Musaf. I ask everyone to please rise. Page, excuse me. Okay. We will continue page 343. We will recite the first three brachot as usual out loud. Then you may continue through page 355. And there are inserts. Just remember that we are in the holiday of Pesach, or Passover. And we're on the first 2 days. So there are different parts to add. Page 343, we will begin together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Dovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chastei Avot ומביא גואל לפני בניהם למען שמו ביהבה Melech Ozer Ufokid Mashiach Magen. Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avram Ufokid Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayim Etimato Rav Lahoshia Marid Atahal Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Mechayim Etim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Aserim Umekayim Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocham Bal Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Memit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'nemanat Alachayot Metim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh Hametim Naritzacha V'nakadishcha Kisot Siach Sarfei Kodesh Amakdishim Shimcha Bakodesh Kakatu Vayad Neviacha Vikara Ze V'yamar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzavot Meloch Ha'aretz Kevodo Kevodo Malei Olam Mishartav Shalim Zelazeh Hayem Mekom Kevodo Liumatam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Adonai Mimkomo Yifen Baracham Yacham Yachadim Yachadim Shemo Erev Avoki B'chol Yom Tamid Pa'amahim Bi'ava Shema Umarim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Hu Eloheinu Hu Avinu Hu Malkeinu Hu Moshiach V'Hu Yashmin Barachamav Shenit Le'enei Kol Chai Le'od Lachem Le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adir Adirenu Adonai Donenu Ma'adir Shmecha B'chol Ha'aretz V'hal Melech al Kol Ha'aretz B'yom Moed Echad U'Shmo Echad Uvdivrei Kachecha Katuv Lemor Yimloch Adonai Le'olam Elohayich Zion Ledor Vador Hallelujah Ledor Vador Ledor Vador Ledor Vador Nagid God Lecha Ulenetzach Netzachim Ulenetzach Netzachim Kedushak Nakdish Ledor Vador Ledor Vador Ledor Vador Nagid God Lecha Ulenetzach Netzachim Ulenetzach Netzachim Kedushak Nakdish V'shivchacha Eloheinu Mipinu layamush le'olam va'ed Ki Amelech Gadol Ki Amelech Gadol V'kadosh Ata Ledor Vador Ledor Vador Ledor Vador Nagid God Lecha Ulenetzach Netzachim Ulenetzach Netzachim Kedushak Nakdish Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el Kadosh. חג המצות הזה זמן חירותנו. חג המצות הזה ובחודש הראשון ב14 יום לחודש פסח, פסח לאדוני ב15 יום לחודש. ישמחו השם במלכותך. מודים אנחנו לך. If you have not finished your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. We will move on to Ein Keloheinu, page 204. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Tahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Tahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Tahu Shiktiru, Avotenu, Lefanecha et Kedod Hasamim. We rise, page 205, as the ark is open for Elenu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol latet gdula liotze bereshit shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot v'lo samanu k'mishmachot hadama shelo sam chilkenu kahem v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim l'fnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu Shehu notei shamayim v'yosed haaretz u'moshe v'yikareu b'shamayim imao u'shchinatu zo begavei meromim u'Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu evezulato Kakatu b'torato v'yadata yom v'hashivota elavavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim nimal v'al haaretz mitachat ein od ahokein l'kavel l'chol Adonai Eloheinu li v'mimim. Gagadu b'doratecha Adonai imloch le'olam v'ho'ed v'nehemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz bayom mahu yeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad. You may be seated. This week we will observe yard sites for Oscar Jerome Halbin, Francis Goldfinger, Rose Leibovitz, Henrietta Nickel, Irene Shirley Siderman, Minnie Zacuto, Herman Axelrod, Miriam Cohen, Ella Keller, Rosalind Blitz Schulwolf, Cahan, Barry Roseman, Fanny Schulman, Manasseh Mandelbaum, and Kate Sachs. Those observing Yahrzeit and those who mourn, please rise. Join me, page 207, for the Kaddish Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, b'yomah divrach chibrutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'galav izman kariv imo amen, yehi Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omel maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalol Shmei d'kudisha b'richu, Laila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran b'yomah v'yimaru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamayim v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimaru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, uyaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimaru amen. You may be seated. Thank you so much for joining me, for joining us. For this first day of Shabbat Pesach services. Just a reminder, there's no Havdalah this evening that is put on by the Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah. Since it is the second Seder, we will be back next week, next Saturday night at 8 p.m. Note the time change. And tomorrow morning, second day of Passover, services will again be at 9:30 a.m. You may come in person or online. Next Friday morning, we will be joined by our student cantor, Carl Sayers, for the seventh day of Passover. That's next Friday at 9:30 a.m. He will join us for Shabbat Pesach service in the evening on Friday night at 6. And again, Carl will join us Shabbat morning for the last day of Pesach services at 9:30 a.m. And that day we will have Yizkor. We will also have a special speaker that next Saturday morning, and from the ISJL, the Institute for Southern Jewish Life, who will share Torah teachings with us. So next week, every week is exciting. So please join us. We would really love to try and get a minyan back together on Shabbat morning, so we can have a full Torah service. At some point in the near future, we will start having kiddushes again, and hopefully onigs on Friday night. So how nice it would be to be able to have some challah, some wine, some other spirits, and a little nosh, and switch cameras. Okay, thank you. All right, should I start over? No, I will not start over. Thank you, Irene. Sometimes I don't like looking at the screen. Sometimes I don't notice that I haven't moved the camera back. Okay, in any event, Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. We will conclude our service, page 211, with Adon Olam. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Liet Nasa, V'chefso Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'yacharei Kichlot Tako, Levado Yimloch Nara Adon Olam, V'waya, V'ova, V'oya B'tifara Adon Olam, Shem Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Liet Nasa, V'chefso Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Echad V'yein Sheni, Laham Shalo Lahach Bira Adon Olam, Beli Reishi, Beli Tachlit, V'lo Oz V'ham Misra Adon Olam, Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'itnasa V'chefso Kol Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam V'hu Eli V'chai Goali V'tzorchev Li B'Etz Adon Olam V'hu Nisi Yomanos Li Minat Kosi B'Yom Mikra Adon Olam Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'etnasa V'chefso Kol Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam Biyado Afkid Ruchi B'Yetishan V'Yaira Adon Olam V'Imaruchi Geviati Adon Oli V'Lo Ira Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'etnasa V'chefso Kol Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam. Chag Sameach Shabbat.